Welcome to Wabas on Wire. Today we're talking about Rafizi Ramli's demand for the dismissal of a senior political secretary. And this isn't just, typical political back and forth. It feels different. It's a major public clash over the government's whole anti-corruption promise.
It really is. It's a huge stress test for the administration, especially now, 3 years in. What Rafizi Ramli is doing here, he isn't just pointing out a disagreement with the prime minister. He's forcing a really uncomfortable question.
Which is what?
Are the rules of good governance actually being applied to everyone, especially to the people right there in the inner circle next to the prime minister?
That's the tension right there. It all comes down to the prime minister's response or what Rafizi sees as a totally insufficient response to what's being alleged.
Exactly. And this really frames our whole discussion. The question for you listening is pretty fundamental. It goes right to the heart of public trust. When an official in such a high position has their integrity questioned, is a severe warning from the prime minister actually enough? Or does the whole reform agenda demand something more?
Something more decisive.
Something decisive. Because the precedent that's set here could define political conduct for years to come.
Okay, so let's get into the specifics. Rafizi wasn't vague. He named the person directly.
No, not at all. He pointed straight at Datuk Seri Samsul Iskandar, the prime minister's senior political secretary.
And that's a serious position. This isn't some junior aide we're talking about. This is someone with real access and influence.
Precisely. And Rafizi's demand was just as direct. He said the prime minister shouldn't just issue a warning, for internal discipline. He said if the administration is truly serious, the prime minister needs to use his power and fire him immediately.
So we have the official, we have the demand. What was the actual offense that sparked this? We keep hearing about a letter of support. What is that, and why is it such a big deal?
The specific incident Rafizi is focused on is a letter of support that the senior political secretary sent to the Ministry of Health sometime this year, in 2024.
A letter of support. I mean, on the surface, that sounds pretty harmless.
It does, but you have to look at the role. A senior political secretary isn't a neutral civil servant. Their power comes directly from their closeness to the prime minister.
So when a letter comes from that office to a ministry, say the Ministry of Health, which handles massive contracts, huge amounts of public money, it lands differently.
It lands with immense weight. The letter might just say something simple like, I support this company or I recommend this project, but the unspoken message, the implicit message is, the prime minister's office is watching this decision.
So it creates this gray area. It's using the influence of the highest office to potentially nudge a decision about public funds.
That's exactly it. And this is where Rafizi takes his argument a step further. He moves it from just a breach of ethics to potential criminal misconduct. He asks the one question that changes everything. Did the senior political secretary get anything in return for writing that letter? Any kind of reward, any benefit money, a future favor, anything at all?
Because if the answer is yes, then we're not talking about a simple mistake anymore.
Exactly. If money or a favor was exchanged, it's not an administrative issue that you fix with a warning. You are now talking about corruption. You're talking about influence peddling. And that demands a full investigation by the authorities.
And even if nothing was exchanged, the act itself.
Even then, just using the authority of the prime minister's office like that sets a terrible precedent for good governance.
This is where it gets really heavy politically. Because Rafizi is claiming this is not a one-off incident.
No, he's saying it's a pattern, that this official has done things like this before and has, so far, avoided any real consequences.
So this isn't about one mistake. It's about a history of what he calls non-action.
That's what gives his demand so much weight. He revealed that he had actually discussed similar complaints about this same person with the prime minister several times before this latest letter came to light.
And were those just rumors or?
That's the critical part. Rafizi claims those earlier complaints were investigated inside the prime minister's office and that they were proven to be true.
Wait, proven to be true?
That's the claim. That misconduct was identified and confirmed internally. And yet, despite that, the official kept his job. He's still there today.
That suggests a huge amount of tolerance for this kind of behavior. Maybe loyalty is trumping good governance.
It certainly looks that way. And you have to remember, this recent issue with the letter wasn't some big secret. It was already circulating online and in political circles since last year. The health minister himself, Datuk Seri Zulkifli Ahmad, even confirmed the incident happened.
So the government knew. The facts were confirmed. And the only result was this severe warning.
Which just reinforces Rafizi's entire point. It fits the pattern he's describing. Confirmed problem, light slap on the wrist, and the person stays in power.
It's so damaging for public trust. It makes it seem like there's one set of rules for the public and another for those at the top.
And that brings us to the Prime Minister's official response. He did address it in the Dewan Rakyat in Parliament.
What did he say?
He confirmed he knew about the letter, and he stated, on the record, that he had issued a severe warning to the political secretary. That was the official action taken.
But that's what Rafizi says lacks force. I mean, if you get caught and the only consequence is you keep your powerful job, what's the message there?
It's a very practical point, isn't it? A warning is just words. There's no demotion, no salary cut, no loss of access or power. So as Rafizi argues, eventually these fierce warnings become meaningless. People see that you can ride out the storm and just get back to business.
And that's the perception problem. It looks exactly like what Rafizi said. They are saying one thing but doing another.
Absolutely. You have to remember, this government's entire platform was built on fighting corruption, on stopping the culture of plunder. That's what people voted for. 3 years later, the actions have to match those words, especially for people in the Prime Minister's own office. If they don't, the whole anti-corruption message it falls apart.
So if the internal warning isn't enough, what is? What's the next step Rafizi is demanding?
He's pushing it beyond just an internal matter. He says a formal report has to be made to the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission.
Okay, so take it out of the Prime Minister's hands and give it to an independent body.
That's the only way to restore trust. The Prime Minister's office is responsible for ethics and conduct, sure, but the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission is responsible for investigating if a crime was committed. And that's a crucial distinction.
It takes it from an HR issue to a potential criminal one.
Exactly. It shows that no one, not even someone in the Prime Minister's office, is immune from outside scrutiny. It's about the rule of law, not internal politics.
And Rafizi also connects this specific case to a wider problem with corruption cases in general, doesn't he?
He does. He uses this as an example of a bigger frustration. The public, we always see the news about the big arrests. It feels like action is being taken. But then, how many of those high-profile cases actually make it all the way to a conviction and a sentence?
Yeah.
Frustratingly few. The justice cycle often feels incomplete.
So demanding a Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission report it's a demand for the whole process, not just the investigation, but a real outcome.
That's the ultimate point. If this administration wants to prove it's serious, it has to show that everyone is subject to the full, transparent legal process. A simple warning for something this public that's already been confirmed. It just makes every anti-corruption speech they gave sound hollow.
Which leads to Rafizi's final, very pointed question. I mean, given this history, can you really blame the public for questioning how serious the Prime Minister really is about all this?
You can't. It's a devastating question because it cuts right to the government's legitimacy. This isn't just about one letter anymore. It's about the precedent. What message are you sending to every other political appointee?
That if you're close enough to the center of power, you're protected, which is exactly the culture they promised to get rid of.
Exactly. So the Prime Minister has a choice. The political value of one aide versus the public's trust in his entire reform agenda. It's a defining moment.
A tough choice.
It is. And for you, the listener, it comes down to this. When a government's promises clash so publicly with its actions, which one really shows you what their priorities are? Which one will define their legacy?
A very weighty question to think about as this all plays out. Thank you for walking us through the complexities here.
My pleasure.
Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.